Okay. Hi, JP. Welcome back to the
Hey, Doug.
show.
Hey, Douglas. Great to be back. Thanks for having me.
As we were just talking about before we got on, now you were on the audio podcast. Do you remember how long ago that was?
I think that was in February
Of 2021?
2020, 2021, yes.
Do you remember what we talked about?
I do. We were talking about my first book, which was Secret Sky, and that was book one of the Gift Legacy, which is a 7-book series.
How long have you been writing?
I've been writing for 12 years now, and I do it full time. I live on a little tiny island. It's absolutely perfect for writing, and I've got a new book out. It releases today.
Okay, is that Bloodmark?
That's Bloodmark.
Okay, so we'll be talking about that one in a few minutes. So what were you doing before you started writing full time?
I was traveling with my husband for about 5 years. He works in the mining industry, and so we were in Tucson for a number of years, and down in Mexico we lived there for a year, and we were on the Baja for a year. So when I came back from that travel, it was my first winter back on the West Coast, and the rain had started, and it was nasty outside, and I decided that to pass the time I was going to try my hand at writing, and I found I absolutely loved it. It was the most fun I've ever had, and I haven't stopped since.
What was the first thing that you got published?
I'm an indie, so I indie published it myself, and it was Secret Sky. That was my first book. It took quite a while to write that one, but I finally got it out, and yeah, Secret Sky was the first.
Now, how has the reception been for Secret Sky?
It's been great. It's been really good. I've learned as I've gone along. So I've learned how to get reviews, and I've learned how to market it a little bit better. I've signed on with a publicist, Mickey Mickelson of Creative Edge, and he's been wonderful getting me out in front of the public on podcasts and vlogs. And so sales are still trickling in for it. Every month I sell some, and the follow through and the read through on that series is fantastic. So if I can hook someone on book one, I'm pretty sure there's a 60% or better chance they're going to read book two and through the series.
Can I ask why you decided to self-publish versus trying to shop it around to a traditional publisher?
Well, the first time around, it was primarily because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was so fresh at it, and I wasn't sure how it all worked. And I had looked online to figure out how you do that. I did some research on it, and I have a brother-in-law who's a newspaper editor. And I probably sent out 5 or 6 letters to agents to try to get representation, and then I got impatient with the process and put it out myself. And after you've put out one book, there aren't many publishers that will pick up a second book in the same series. So I just continued along that vein. But I did try to get an agent for Bloodmark. I did want to see if the grass was greener on the traditional side of the fence. So I did go down that path, and I probably put out 12 to 15 letters to agents, and one was very interested and asked for a full and read it, but ended up turning it down in the end. So I went indie again with this one.
Just for people who may be trying to get their book published, it's best to get an agent to shop the books to publishers rather than just doing it directly yourself?
Some of the big publishers won't take books
Unsolicited.
directly
from
authors. So, and I was very particular about the agent that I went to. I went to agents that I knew had connections with publishers that I was interested in. Tor being one of the ones I was very interested in, but like I say, that one didn't pan out. Not this time around, anyway.
How do you feel about the idea of validation in terms of if a traditional publisher says, yes, we love your book, and they pick it up and maybe they write you a check for an advance? Does that give you more confidence than if you put your book out as a self-published author and maybe you get a few nice reviews on Amazon Kindle? Or does one outweigh the other, or are they both as important to you or equal?
It was wasn't validation I was going for. That would have been a nice little side bonus, I guess. But what I was going for was perhaps a little less work, because indie publishing is a lot of work. You do everything. And that was my hope, was that I would be able to get a deal where I wouldn't have to do all of the work involved all of the time. So that wasn't my main, the validation wasn't a main point for me. I think for me, the most important thing is to reach an audience. And if I can do that indie, I'm happy doing that indie. And the first series has reached an audience, and I've got over 60 reviews now on the Amazon platform, and that's very satisfying. Very satisfying.
I've had this conversation with other authors, and I get different opinions. Some people have said that, the validation from getting signed to a traditional publisher was the biggest bonus of doing it that way versus doing it themselves. Others have said, no, it's not that important. So, okay, so you've got your latest book out, is called Bloodmark. And what genre is this new book?
It's a similar genre. It's a supernatural thriller. This one is probably more fast-paced, a little darker, it's the same type of material, but a very different character, and the same setting. Vancouver is still the setting, because I like using Vancouver as the setting, and the character here, her name is Jane Walker.
Supernatural thriller. Now, what does that mean? There's about 5 million genres, and I can't keep up with which ones are which. So that means that, like witches, and there's powers. People have unearthly powers, the characters do.
This is probably the most difficult conversation I have with people when they ask about the books, is the genre, because it fits in a few. There are no werewolves or vampires, but it is set in current times. So it's not a high fantasy, it's a low fantasy, but it's not magic. It's supernatural. It's telekinesis. It's a little bit of time slip. It's not a physical power that this woman has, but it's sort of an ability to dream of the past and visit the past. And she's also protected by some Inca lore. So I brought some Inca lore into it. So, if you say there's a little tiny bit of romance, it's kind of a subgenre is the romance. The thriller it's a very fast pace. That's why I call it a thriller. And the supernatural is the paranormal fantasy kind of rolled into one, but no vampires, no werewolves.
Okay.
No fae, no zombies. It's like fantasy light.
Fantasy light. Okay. So is it? So it's not.
Is it Twilight?
Totally.
The sparkly
Twilight.
one?
Twilight.
Okay.
Thank
the
you.
Sparkly one, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't that one, right? It's not like that.
No. Well, the characters are older. She's 25 and her roommate's 25, and so it's for a little bit of an older crowd for sure. Than Twilight was kind of for teens and high school kids.
This book is out now?
Came out today. The 19th of October
Oh.
is what today is. And
Oh.
so I've been very busy this morning.
Why do you like this genre?
I find it fascinating. I love the possibility. And maybe because I grew up being, the skinny weakling kid. I always thought, wouldn't it be great to just, kapow, like they like they do in the comics. I find it interesting, fascinating. I love the possibility that some of these things might exist. They certainly haven't been completely debunked, like telekinesis and telepathy. I love the thought that those things could be real.
Well, we have to wind this down. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Sure, jpmcleanauthor.com. You can download the first chapters of all of my books on there and find my social media links, and also buy links if you're interested in buying the books.
Okay, great. Well, JP, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you again. Best of luck with Bloodmark.